A big hello and a very warm welcome to Brand Equity with me, Sonali Krishna. My guest today needs no formal introduction. He is the original entrepreneur, and as a new generation would call it, he is the OG. He transformed his family's trading business in spices and edible oils into a consumer goods giant. This is a company which is best known for its Saffola oil and parachute coconut oil, and today sells in more than 25 countries. That's correct. I'm talking about the FMCG major, Marico, and my guest today is someone I know rather well, and I've had the pleasure of having many an abstract conversation with him. It's the one and only Harsh Mariwala. Mr. Mariwala's journey is fascinating to say the least, but for all of you seeking some inspiration, he's chronicled his journey in his latest book called Harsh Realities, The Making of Marico. Well, today I am fortunate that he's joining me from Dubai and giving me time to talk about the making of Marico, the past, and how he overcame a lot of obstacles that many of us may not know of. Thank you so much, Mr. Mariwala. Truly a pleasure having you on Brand Equity and giving me time, although you're in Dubai.
Thank you, Sonali, and great talking to you in this pandemic times. So lovely interacting with you virtually.
I would have preferred to do this interview one-on-one, face-to-face, because, virtual sucks the joy out of many a conversation. But, it is what it is. Having said that, I've read your book and you have detailed it, in a manner for anyone and everybody who's seeking to be an entrepreneur or wants to push the envelope. It gives them a good sense of, the path, which is not all rosy, but filled with thorns, and how you overcome them. My question, first question to you is about, the name Marico and Mariwala. And I was absolutely amazed to know that, the surname came from the word Mari, which I believe in Gujarati is pepper. And because your ancestors were called Pepperman, you were called Mariwala. Very, very interesting way of how we were all given surnames. But more importantly, when I read your book, you've called yourself a shy, reticent man. So you seem to be a personality that was not out there and, aggressive and showing ambition. However, when you read the book in your entire journey, you seem to be a man, fueled by ambition. So, give me a sense as to when this reticent, shy boy became a boy who, took on the likes of levers at one point to becoming a global FMCG company.
Sonali, thank you for asking me such pointed question. But let me just clarify that just because you are shy and quiet and because you're an introvert doesn't mean that you don't have strong ambitions, So I don't see any relationship with shy, reticent, introvert and not having ambition, I think on the contrary, those people, I believe, those who are introverts have more ambitions because they have it within them that they want to leave a stamp of whatever they've done. They want to leave a legacy. And I think I've always been driven internally. I always call it a burning desire to succeed. And I've always had that from the time I started working. I never knew what I was going to do in life. But I saw an opportunity, I pursued it, and it's grown over a period of time. And it has leveraged my strengths. But the key thing is that any entrepreneur, they have to have it within them, that burning desire to succeed, because there are setbacks in every individual's life. I've also had multiple setbacks. How do you fight back is the key thing, So you need passion, and you need to combine passion with determination and perseverance. And then you get grit. And if you have grit, and if you have something sustainable in terms of an opportunity in creating a business, then you'll make that happen. So I was coming from that mindset that, okay, I have to succeed. I will overcome certain failures. It's a matter of time. I will learn from those failures and grow big.
I understand what you're saying. You came from a family business. You lived as a joint family. These are all value systems that, you've seen from your birth, where, there is a way of doing things in the family business. Everything is co-opted together. where did the fire and trigger, come in you to want to go beyond a family business, want to create a big empire?
A lot depends on the kind of business you are in.
Hmm.
And in the kind of business we are in, which is fast moving consumer goods, it's very important to have professionals because you need specialist skills in brand building, sales and distribution, in innovation, in product development. And if you look at the leading companies globally, who have made it big, they're all professional organizations. Even in India, also, most of the FMCG large companies are managed professionally. They've converted themselves from family to professional. So I was very clear that if I had to be something like a respected FMCG company, I had to turn it professional because a lot of talent professionals can bring, especially to this kind of business, the family may not be able to. I'm not saying they will not do it, but may not be able to because these are specialist skills. And for that specialist skills, you need to have a professional who is an experience in brand building, worked in build brands or sales and distribution or product development. And I was very clear that we had to turn this company into a professionally managed company because that was good for business.
Yeah, so these kind of insights that you had quite early on, in your career, although despite the fact that you didn't have any formal education in terms of an MBA, and you've learned everything on the job, and actually by traveling and visiting, because I believe that when you were earlier on in your family business and you took over just after you finished college in Sydney, you decided to do a entire trip across India to look at consumer behavior. Now, this is not normal because one has not learned about this. One has not, had formal education, but you still had that curiosity to travel to see, for instance, how coconut oil was being consumed in different parts of the country. Similarly, when I cut to the part when you actually started Marico, your entire pivot on and focus on culture and HR is phenomenal, because I don't even think people who are highly educated kind of look at these wheels as important wheels of an organization. So my question is, where was your inspiration coming from to have these very modern thoughts?
Two questions you raised. One is, how do you get consumer insights? How do you interact with consumers and how do you identify opportunities? And I think ultimately I realized very early that no amount of market research is going to help me. I have to actually go to consumers and find out from them what are the latent needs which are not satisfied. Can I supply them coconut oil in plastic bottles instead of tin bottles? It is much more convenient to use. It is cheaper. It is far more attractive than tin. So I think the consumer inciting part came from interacting with some thought leaders in the initial part of my journey, as well as reading a lot of books. And also it's common sense that ultimately, you have to look at the final consumer and their needs, and what are the gaps which are there in the consumer needs where you can identify and offer a product which will be relevant to the consumer. So that was a bit of a common sense, bit of reading, and also interactions with some thought leaders, which made me go through that route. And when you take a certain route and you start seeing the benefits of that, then it just gets reinforced your thinking. So then you want to do more and more of that. So that's my limited answer in terms of why consumer inciting at an early stage. The second question you raised is about culture building, and you're absolutely right that in the early 90s, when I spent a lot of time in building the culture of the organization, many organizations had not taken the trouble. On the contrary, many times one would go to the reception, you will have values pasted in the reception, but when you ask people within the organization, they would say these are only meant for showing. I did not want that to happen. I was very clear that Marico, which was formed in the year 1990, should have a very strong culture, because culture acts as a source of competitive advantage. We wanted a culture which was very innovative. In my earlier years in Bombay Oil Industries, innovation had played a very important role in driving growth, in this continuous growth. So whenever we had innovated something which was unusual, we had seen huge impact on our market share as well as our growth. And I was absolutely convinced that if we had to create a bouquet of brands in FMCG, as well as continue to increase our market shares in our existing brands, become market leaders, I had to create a culture of innovation. And I read a lot. I used to read much more then. So I wrote down the values and went into details. What creates innovation within an organization? And I think that led to me taking this whole subject of culture very seriously. Um, and I spent about 3, 4 initial years in culture building. It's a difficult thing to do, but once you do it, I think you realize how critical it is for you to succeed in the marketplace. The bigger challenge is how do you maintain that culture over a period of time? Because as organizations grow, you acquire some new companies, you put up some new plants, you have new people coming in. So the key challenge is how do you ensure that the new people coming into your organization are also enculturized?
Moving from culture, I want to talk about some of your watershed moments, in your journey so far. Uh, One being, I think, the big joint family separation, which you've talked about in detail in your book, and uh, the person who's Ramcharan has also commented in the book saying that he salutes the way that you actually dealt with it. Because usually big businesses, joint family businesses which separate, tend to be very bitter, tend to have a lot of bad blood going forward, also destroys the value created by that family. If you can take me through, for the benefit of my viewers and myself, that period, which I believe till date would have been, your biggest struggle so far emotionally, because you're dealing with close family members and that separation.
So I think in any joint family, there may be certain times when one realizes that our ambitions, our capabilities, our way forward don't match. And I think there are two ways of looking at it. There are some families, they say that come what may, we will continue as a family. But I think at some stage, if one realizes that it's not leading to a situation where the business grows, then it's better to take certain calls. So I think many families are not able to take those calls. To me, the business or the organization's interest comes first, and then the families. And there are many families who say that the family's interests come first and let the organizational performance, if it is not there, it's okay, but the family has to stay united. But I'm of the prior one where the organization's interest should come first. So it is a difficult journey because it means separation of ownership, and then who will manage what, and how do you value the companies, and how do you pay. So it's something which it takes time. You cannot expedite it. So in my case, it took about almost 2 years. And luckily, we worked with an individual who was trusted by all the family members. And I think that his presence really helped us in terms of taking the whole discussions forward. So it was done mutually. Of course, there was some degree of, I can't say there was no bitterness, because when it comes, but I think the relationship have improved since then, and we are almost back to normal relationships. But it was tough at that time. In some cases, we've seen it's very, very bitter, and they go to courts, and in the bargain, the business also suffers. So it's very important that the stakeholders in the family do it in a manner which is fair, where all the parties ultimately at the end of the day should say that, okay, it was a fair settlement to all of us.
Mr. Mariwala, I'm curious by your statement where you say that, there are two opinions, that, family interest first and business second, and you're of the opinion business first and family second. Why do you hold this view, and why do you think it's a prudent view to hold?
So I'm just saying this in the context of business. So business versus family, because then in that case, I'm not saying that the family is not important, but in the context of between the choice, because ultimately, if you're running a public company, for example, you are not the owner. You are a part owner. And I think many entrepreneurs, they think that they are the owners of the company. They are not owners. You are managing others' shareholding. And you can't put your family situation in that and saying that, for me, the family comes first, but the business is also owned by other people, and they also behave as if the business company belongs to them. I think the first change with at least the public limited company entrepreneurs or founders or families have to realize that the company does not belong to them. They have a certain ownership, which may be majority, but they also have to look at all the stakeholders' interests and shareholders' interests, and not just their own interests.
Moving to, the birth of Marico and you know, the troubles you faced on ground when it came with parachute. If you could just narrate that little story about, wanting to make parachute into smaller, detailed tins for the consumers, and
Yeah.
and the problems you faced with the distributors when you
Yeah.
wanted to have that differentiation moving from tin to plastic. If you could narrate that story, it's such a beautiful story.
In my initial years, when I joined the business, we were selling coconut oil in bulk, mainly in 15-liter tins, in barrels. We were selling it to a company which was packing in small tins in the East. And there were a lot of that, my uncles used to mention that, look, how they've done well and we should do that. So I got some, shall I say, feelers from the family that one could look at this as an opportunity. And then initially I started traveling interior markets in Maharashtra, Gujarat, started appointing distributors, did my own retailing. And that's how I started gaining confidence that, yes, we have a good quality product. And if we are just able to distribute it well, we should be able to get some market share. So that happened in the first 4 or 5 years. And we got some market share to the extent of 15% or so in the coconut oil category. But at some stage, we started stagnating in terms of increase in market share. And that time I realized that if we had to grow, we had to do something differently. So that's how we put up our thinking hats and said that what can we do differently? And that's how the idea of converting the whole market at that time in tins to plastics came in. And we did consumer insighting. The consumers also preferred something in plastics because it was more attractive. It was easy for them to use.
But if you look at the time when you started off Marico to today, I mean, the paradigm has shifted so drastically. What are, what would you say would be the good uh, in doing business in those days and juxtapose it in today's day? What would be the key differences, the good, the bad, the ugly?
So I think overall business environment changed dramatically. And earlier days, there were a lot of entry barriers for companies which were in FMCG in terms of distribution costs, servicing so many outlets all over the country, advertising costs. You had to advertise on television or press. All that is gone now. You can create digital brands through e-commerce networks. You can do digital advertising. So your entry barriers in creating brands has gone down dramatically because of emergence of digital world. I think the overall the business climate also has changed from a license. Now everything is de-licensed. So I think that's a huge opportunity for entrepreneurs to actually add value. The role of technology has changed dramatically. Of course, the competition levels have gone up. So today's businesses are far more competitive. And the overall most important thing, the ecosystem for new entrepreneurs has come up. In those days, there was no ecosystem. For example, if you had a good idea and you didn't have the money, there were no funders at that time. Now you have multiple options for funding, whether it's a startup or whether it's a early stage funding or a private equity or going public. So the whole ecosystem for entrepreneurship has come up, and that's huge value add for the entrepreneurs in terms of raising funds and actually backing the business, which were not existing at then.
Mr. Mariwala, I know you're very involved in the startup ecosystem. You are, yourself through your foundation, extremely active and involved. However, you make a fair point. The entry barrier has gone down. There are so many more opportunities. There is so many more ways to connect with the consumer. There are so many more opportunities for funding. But despite all of that opening up, don't you think the number of solid entrepreneurs who've actually made a fantastic story in terms of an innovative idea coming to life and becoming a big company are few and far between? There are so many more failures that, of course, the media doesn't highlight.
So I think failures are bound to be there, especially in the FMCG segment where on average globally 1 or 2 out of 10 succeed. So one has to live with failures. The key thing is to identify what is relevant to the consumer. Do you have a proposition which is differentiated or innovative? You can't have a Me Too product. If you go in the market with a Me Too product in a highly competitive environment, your chances of success will be low. So the key thing is what is innovative about you? How big is the opportunity? And you have to prototype. You have to take some risk. You may fail
Give
also
me,
if you.
give me one name in the last 30 years where you've seen a company has been given birth to and is sizable now in the FMCG space, given the opportunities, given the lack of barriers, given the technology prowess, all of it.
So I think in terms of size, you may not get, because still today the whole distribution need and all that's still there. So it's a chicken and egg situation. You need a certain critical mass to have an already distribution network. And still today, in terms of contribution to the sales, about 15% comes from modern trade, about 5-7% comes from e-commerce. So balance 75-80% comes from grocers and retail outlets, which are spread over the country, totaling about 5 million outlets. So you need a certain critical mass for that to succeed. So to that extent, you're right. I can't see any companies which have come in the recent past, and you have a handful of 4 or 5 Indian companies which have emerged, which are above, say, 3,000-4,000 crore turnover. And but there are newer opportunities. You've seen likes of Nykaa, you've seen likes of Mama, you've seen so many other digital brands. We acquired some digital brands like Just Herbs as well as Beardo. So there are newer opportunities, and these have been created within a very short period of time. And can you see the wealth or the market cap of somebody like Zomato? Nobody would have thought. I mean, they are way above Marico also. So these are new age businesses which have done well. I don't know whether it is sustained, not sustained, but I mean, they are growing very, very fast. So the route to success in these cases is very, very different than compared to what we did it.
Last question before I let you go. How long did you take to write the book? What was the process in terms of you putting your thoughts down and deciding what to write, and how much to write? How long did it take you? And one thing you want to tell people who are watching on what the book will give them.
So let me start with the last question. One thing the book will, it's a memoir of my business journey, and is co-authored by renowned management guru, Professor Ramcharan, who has written more than 30 books, which have sold more than 4 million copies globally. Basically, it's an account of my journey, my success, my failures, and it's peppered with a lot of nuggets given by Ramcharan, nuggets of wisdom. And the book is about building consumer business, which includes also talent management, creating a culture of innovation. So a lot of learning for entrepreneurs, professionals, and students. And it is in a story format, which will be very, very interesting to read. I have given the book, and I hope you enjoyed reading the book. But whoever has read the book has told me that it's an easy reading. But at the same time, there is a lot of take-home value for the person who has read the book. In terms of your second question, how long would it take to write the book? I went through a little bit of some errors in terms of working with some other authors who did not work out. And finally, I think I found the calling in my wife in terms of her writing. And the pandemic really helped, So the book, then the business part was written by Jaswant Nair, who was earlier head of our HR. And a lot of personalization, emotional side, anecdotes were huge value add from my wife. And we used to sit every day. And that pandemic really helped, because I had to sit with her almost 2 hours for a year or so. And we would go into great detail. She's a perfectionist, so she goes into, each and every word selection and adding value through anecdotes and making it emotionally gripping. So I think that pandemic, there's a huge benefit of pandemic in terms of finishing that book. And I am quite happy the way it's turned out. And I hope that the readers enjoy reading the book. So the name of the book is Harsh Realities, which is a pun on my name. And I think the feedback I've got also on the name of the book also is very, very positive.
If anybody reads your book, they'll know that over the last many, many years, you've been a very busy man, brimming with ambitions, new products, new categories. You've been busy. Have you been a good family man?
That you have to ask my family. But maybe in my initial years, I was concentrating more on business. These days, I spend a lot of time with the family. I'm just now with my family.
The pandemic has helped.
It has also helped, but I think I'm trying to make up for what I did not in the earlier days.
Fair enough. Thank you again for your time, Mr. Mariwala. All the very best for Harsh Realities, and have a lovely time in Dubai, and hopefully see you in person sometime soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sonali. Thank you. Thank you so much.